most important things that you could ever do. And they know. Some days I'm more wolf than woman, and I'm still learning how to stop apologizing for my wild. Welcome, wanderer of thought, to the garden of the mind, where dreams take root and seeds of awakening are sown. Here, we talk about everything from spiritual awakening, energy, astral travel, all the way to the collective energy, parenting starseeds, psychic gifts, addiction, and the human experience. What it means to truly ascend, from the magic to the mess, and how we are all navigating and alchemizing our way through it. A place where we have the space to remember who we truly are. I'm your host, Mandy Hayes. Welcome to Brain Flowers. Let's get to it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Flowers. This will be episode 7. And I'm very excited to share some things with you. So, for the last few episodes, we have been exploring a lot of different people's spiritual awakening experiences. And again, the reason for that is because, there's a lot of different reasons, actually. A lot of people don't feel like they are magic. They don't feel like they have anything to say. They don't feel like they have any supernatural or spiritual or enlightened experiences, and that's not true. That's just not true for a lot of people. And so the whole point of going through with different individuals and exploring their spiritual awakening journeys is to show you that it's not black and white. To show you, hey, it's normal for it to look like this or this or this or this. Because it is. It absolutely is. There is no cookie cutter outline for how waking up to realizing that there is more to life than just this physical world, you know? I do have one more amazing, beautiful individual who I will be interviewing about her spiritual awakening journey in the near future. She is my absolute best friend, soul sister, Brandy Cassis. So that is something that we will be looking forward to hearing from her very, very soon. There is also a sharecast coming up next after this episode with the amazing Megan Fortin. So I'm going to be on here today and I'm going to share a little bit about my spiritual awakening journey. So to be completely honest with you, I'm 34. I have 3 kids. I feel like I have lived 4 different lifetimes already in this one life. And each book that was a different lifetime is so chock full of so many experiences that led me to where I am now, being a spiritual life coach, being someone who interprets information from people's energy fields through clairtangiancy, doing Reiki, doing QHHT sessions, doing Akashic readings, massage, doing tarot readings, all of the things that I do now as my job, as my career. There's so many different things that led me here. So, like everyone else, I will start from the beginning. This will probably be a couple episodes long, so I'm gonna break it up into sections. So the first part, like I said, will be starting from when I was a little kid. So growing up, I was always fascinated with magic and witches. I can actually remember being a witch for Halloween for at least 6 to 8 years in a row. Actually, I attracted friends throughout my youth in school who would play witches with me. My friend Daniela, hey girl, and I would hide lighting candles in my room and like practice incantations. Later down the road in 3rd grade, my friend Mackenzie Miller and I would create magical portals to other dimensions on the hill at Star Elementary until we got called out like in the middle of the lunchroom by some uppity little boy named Billy. And that was like incredibly embarrassing. I was a very, very shy kid. And when I look back on it, like the reason behind me being shy was that I was so afraid to be seen. I had all of these different experiences that I didn't even share with those friends that I just mentioned, because I was so afraid that people were going to judge me. Like, deathly terrified of being looked at, right? Ugh, it's so crazy. When you look back on it now, because I have worked through that part of myself over the last couple of years, and especially over this last, this last year, like the last 8 months, the last 6 months, like it's gotten to the point to where I am tired. It takes too much energy to create a filter for each individual person and like filter myself through this way and this way and this way to like please this person and have them see me this way because it makes them feel comfortable and blah, 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 which I've done my entire life. But yeah, I've been working on that, and I don't have the capacity to like do that anymore. So here I am. Anyways, I was a very, very shy person for a really long time, but especially when I was a kid. I loved to draw. I still do. I loved writing. I would write books all the time, and I loved to sing. My dad would sing a lot. There was always something deeper that my heart was reaching for, always. And secretly, I always felt this pull to the stars. I loved calling to the wind, sitting down in the grass, throwing my arms up in the air when I felt that the time was right, and waiting for that big gust of wind to follow. I always felt like there was some special reason that I was put here. I'm sure a lot of us do. Although I was afraid to like go after it, or I was afraid to speak on that. That was a feeling that I had. Like I wasn't a part of my family and I was dropped off on the doorstep by aliens or something. So deep I felt that. I felt like I was dropped off as a baby by beings in Greek mythology, like far, far away from here. My mom and dad took me in, and my real parents were going to pick me up at any point when I got older, right? I can remember the feeling, the longing to just be taken out of this world and brought up to a place that my heart felt connected, where I felt connected, home, right? Picked up by my star family and being taken back home. But that was not the case. Only when I got older did I truly understand like how significant those feelings were. When I was 3, my sister Casey and I moved into a house in Ferndale with a new man who would become my stepdad. My mom and dad split up when I was just a baby. My sister Casey, she's 2 years older than me. We stayed with my grandma and grandpa in Sheboygan after moving out of our small white house in Royal Oak, Michigan. It was so awesome. Every day we would wake up at 6 a.m. and chase this gang of turkeys that would come through the front yard. All day long you could find us wandering around in the woods together and catching grasshoppers out of an old Folgers can. Sorry. My grandpa, he's passed now, unfortunately. I had a dream about him last night, actually. Yeah, him and my grandma were very, very big coffee drinkers. Big Folgers cans, like the big metal ones, we would always just go and find. There were grasshoppers everywhere. It was wild. The day that my mom came and she picked us back up, we drove to the house that I would then, and I still call my home now. This house itself, it was so beautiful. It was mysterious. A lot of the houses in Ferndale are older, and they're built around the 1920s. Some are even older than that, though. Our house was no exception. It had a clawfoot tub in the downstairs bathroom and tiny brass round doorknobs on all of the doors. My favorite was the skeleton keyhole on a lot of the doors in that house. I've always loved that house, and I still do. There were rumors that a little girl died in that house. The previous owner was a woman named B. She had a few children. I can't remember now how many. There was and still is to this day paintings on the ceiling in the basement of faces and words. My favorite is a painting of the tree that used to be in the front yard of that house. The story goes that B had a daughter who got scarlet fever and passed away at a really, really young age. She was obviously devastated. She cremated her daughter and placed the urn in the cupboard of this hallway on the first floor right next to my mom and my stepdad's room. The floor is hardwood, very old with some deep cracks in between the boards. A neighbor kid at the time, Donnie, broke in one day and stole B's boombox out of the same cupboard in the hallway that her daughter's ashes were in. He accidentally knocked over her ashes onto the floor as he hurried to get out of the house. Her ashes lay there in a pile until her mom came home to find them. Like, could you even imagine? There was a family who lived across the street from us that ended up being our babysitters for a long time. Michelle, the youngest child, is the one who told us that story, me and Casey. I asked my stepdad Raj about it, and he said, yeah, I bought the house from a woman named B. He never really did believe in ghosts and such too much. I remember when he cut down the giant pine tree that was growing next to the house forever. My stepdad, he came home from work to find a small flower laid on the new stump where the old pine tree once was. I can tell you, there has been some very interesting things that have happened in that house, and some very crazy things that have happened on that street, Jewel Street. Only writing this now, I'm realizing like how much I was surrounded by death growing up. My stepdad Raj had a daughter named Amanda as well. This is how I got the name Mandy. Her and I, we fought like cats and dogs. She was just a few months younger than me, but she was also a preemie baby, and that made all the difference in like her attitude and her mental attitude. I was a really quiet kid, but there was also a huge fire that raged inside of me. I think my mom is grateful she had a house full of girls, because as much as we fought each other, having 3 rowdy boys beating the crap out of each other would be a lot more work, I would think. Instead of the constant wrestling matches, we broke it up with makeup and cute clothes and letting our mom dye our hair. There were 4 distinct memories from that time in my childhood that will stay with me for the rest of my life. I remember being at my babysitter's house across the street, just sitting on the front porch with Claudia, who was Michelle's mom, while she was pulling weeds out of her flower bed. It was a sunny summer day. We heard a loud bang and looked at each other, kind of confused. This was in the middle of the city, just a few blocks from 8 Mile, so who knows what that sound could have been. I figured we were both thinking the same thing, that it was like a car backfiring or something like that. She went and brought her attention back to, weeding her garden. A few minutes passed, and I saw my neighbor, Gordon, walking out of his house, crossing the street with blood coming out of his mouth and his ears. He was walking right towards us. Claudia, she quickly got up and she ran over to him. I stayed on the porch. The next thing I knew, an ambulance was there, getting him on a stretcher. He was a bigger man, probably about like mid-40s, with straggly dark hair that went down to his chin. And for whatever reason, he felt necessary. Gordon grabbed a gun, he stuck it in his mouth, and he pulled the trigger. To his surprise, he didn't die. I just remember him walking across the street towards us, asking, "Am I bleeding?" That was like one of the craziest memories I had ever experienced, one of them. And I even asked my mom, like in the last year or so, like, did that really happen? She's like, oh yeah, that really happened. Another time around the same age period, I remember drawing on the sidewalk in front of the house. Again, on a nice, warm, sunny day. Something down the street to my left caught my eye. A woman and a man were screaming at each other. Now, the houses in the middle of the street didn't have kids, so I couldn't tell you who these people were. For the most part, our block was pretty quiet. They came out of the house screaming, and the man was running after the woman. She hurried up and got into this white van that was parked in front of their house. He hurried in after her and slammed the door. I remember seeing the van slightly moving back and forth a little bit, and then I just went back to drawing on the sidewalk. I didn't realize how much time had passed before something caught my attention down the street again. Sirens and lights. I figured someone must have called the cops on them and feared that the man was really trying to hurt that woman. I sat in complete stillness, eyes pointed directly at what was happening in front of me. A few cops surrounded the van with guns drawn while one cop knocked on the side of the van door. Out comes the man from down the street, holding up both of his arms in the air. He was holding a kitchen knife in one hand, and there was a whole mess of blood staining his arms, his face, and his white t-shirt. The cops took him into custody and placed him in the back of the cop car. I looked back down at the drawing in front of me and took a deep breath. But what about the woman, right? I look up to see an ambulance had pulled up already, and the men were pulling out a long black bag on top of a gurney from the van and placing her body into the ambulance. Everyone was out on their front porches watching the horror as it unfolded. I ran inside to tell my mom what I just saw, but I don't even remember if I formulated the words. I don't even remember what I said. I just watched a murder take place. I didn't even realize at the time that was a possibility. I didn't even realize what was going on. I was the last one to see that woman alive, and I was around the age of 6. There was and still is a park down the street from my house. The actual name is Fair Park, but we always called it Pickle Park. Our babysitters, Claudia and Michelle and Kim, love to tell us stories about people in the neighborhood. Michelle went on to tell me the story of the Fair Park killer. Now, you can go down my street all the way until it dead ends into Fair Street. The sidewalk kicks to the left and you follow that path down the narrow stretch lined with trees to a small park just a couple of blocks away. We would go there all the time as kids. She continued to say, "He is said to hide in the trees along the sidewalk, and if he came down this path when the sun started to go down, he would jump down from the tree and he'd kill you." Now, that could have been just a story to scare us. However, I remember seeing small carvings in the bark of the trees stretching down the length of the sidewalk. I never saw any instances myself of the killer of Fair Park growing up, just the rumors and the markings in the trees, but that's something that I'll remember forever. There's a whole tornado of different events growing up that seemed so out of the ordinary at the time, but soon thereafter turned into a mist in my mind. A boy was hit by a car riding his bicycle across the street right in front of our house when me and my sisters were all playing outside. I remember driving down Hilton at night with my mom and my sisters. I was looking out the window and saw a young boy, naked, squatting down between bushes next to a brick building. He looked terrified, like he was hiding from someone. I didn't speak up about that. We just drove past. I was the only one who saw him, and I think I didn't say anything because I myself was in disbelief. All of these different instances were placed in a box, put up on a shelf way back in my subconscious. To be honest, whenever someone asked me how life was growing up, my response always was pretty normal. I had 7 brothers and sisters, so it was always busy, but other than that, I don't have much to add. Denial, or maybe just so many accounts of death and disturbances, it just felt normal. I have clients ask me all the time, so when did you first realize you were psychic? I've been trying to figure out a proper way to respond to that because I did not always know. In fact, that's my biggest heart's desire growing up, was to be psychic. Learning what I know now, that should have been my first clue. I never thought of myself as magical or special. I just assumed I was like everybody else. How I longed for a ghost friend in my home that I could share my secrets with, or to dream about a future event that I could predict with such clarity there was no doubt that I had gifts. But it doesn't work like that. Not for everybody. We're all psychic to one level or another because we are all energy. If you are energy, and everything and everyone else in this world is energy, after practice and understanding, you can learn to interpret the energy around you. Read, if you will, other people's energy fields, including past over loved ones. It's like singing in the shower. Everyone can do it, but only some people are really good at it. My personal thought is this. Each lifetime, we strive to reach a higher and higher state of being or frequency. Getting closer and closer to the source. The source meaning God, love, the creator, great spirit, or whatever other term that you feel comfortable with. So when we reincarnate, we forget why we're here, what we are doing, what we are capable of, right? But we continue our lives on the same vibrational frequency that we left off on in the last lifetime, which is why some people are born more open, aware, or more awake than others. That being said, we talked about some of the morbid physical aspects of my childhood, but here comes the weird, amazing, energetic experiences that left me knowing without a doubt there is something else behind all of this physical stuff. There is more out there that we can't see. I was determined to seek it out for the rest of my life. There are a few distinct memories that stick out more than most. The majority of the things that happened to me were between the ages of 5 and 9, so I will try to go back as far as I can. I remember one night my mom, my older sister Casey, and I were staying up north in Sheboygan at my grandma and grandpa's house, as we used to do pretty often. It was nighttime, and my mom and my grandma were out in the living room while me and Casey were in the back room laying down on the 2 twin beds. My grandma had for whenever we would come and stay the night. I remember lying there awake, listening to the TV, and my mom and my grandma were talking. Casey was fast asleep. I was looking at the door to the room. It was closed, but there was a faint yellow glow of the living room light shining around the edges of the door frame. Suddenly, this white trail of smoke started to come into the room from the bottom of the door. I assumed it was from my grandma. She was a smoker, but I noticed it seemed to have an intelligence to it. It came in a trail and moved and curled around, making its way directly to me. It wasn't associated with a particular feeling or anything. I just watched with the covers in my hands, holding them up to my chin as I waited to see what would happen next. The smoke was moving slowly in the air until it made itself face level with me, only a few inches from my face. The smoke started to create a very, very faint lines until it formed a face. The face was that of an old woman. She was smiling. Looking back, she reminded me of Grandmother Willow from Pocahontas. I just sat there for a moment staring at this face. It was so close and so realistic. I looked back at the door and at my sleeping sister, thinking, how is no one else seeing this? Am I okay? What is happening? I became so overwhelmed with fear and questioning this experience that I put my blanket over my head and wished her away. And when I got up the courage to take the blankets off, she and the smoke were both gone. I was around 8 years old. Little did I know then, this same woman would visit me throughout my life, in dreams, and be seen and felt by my bedside, teaching me about energy. Way later down the road in my 30s, I found out that this woman was my great-great-grandmother, Mary Ann Green. I had a lot of experiences at nighttime, especially at my mom's house. I think that's because I was most comfortable there, and I only went to my dad's every other weekend. I had always had very, very vivid, long, real dreams, ever since I can remember. I would be dreaming something and wake up suddenly to see a character or an animal from my dream right there in front of my eyes for a moment or so. It felt and looked so real. I would even open my eyes up really wide, rub my eyes, and it would still be there. And then eventually it would dissipate, like dissolve, until it was gone. Again, I never thought anything of it. I just assumed that, I don't know, everyone either dealt with this at nighttime, or if I said anything, then people would think I was really, really, really weird. So I just never told anyone. Another instance that sticks out most prominently was when I was younger, probably around the age of 6 or 7. I shared a room with my 2 sisters at my mom's house. My parents were divorced from a very young age, so both remarried, bringing into the new homes children from previous relationships, as well as creating new children of their own, making for a very colorful and energy-filled environment in both houses. Each house consisted of anywhere between 4 and 6 kids at a time, depending on where me and my only full-blooded sibling, Casey, were on any given weekend. When I was a lot younger, my dad seemed to be more filled with life, laughing and joking around with us. He would do the old pull the quarter out of your ear trick. He is a tan, tall man with dark hair and brown eyes, just like Casey. I, on the other hand, have white blonde hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and freckles, just like my mom. I can remember Casey, like it was yesterday, telling me, you know, your dad isn't really your dad, right? She said she overheard him talking about it one time. I didn't believe her. Why would she say that to me? I knew he was my dad, because that would just be weird. Why wouldn't he be my dad? I know we didn't look alike, but that happens all the time. That little nugget of suggestion would, of course, follow me in the back of my mind for years to come. It also helped me make that disconnection between me and the rest of my family more prominent. I always felt like an outsider, no matter which house I was in. But back to my experience. I shared a bunk bed with my older sister Casey. I could remember endless nights lying in the top bunk, just staring at the ceiling. I could see what looked to me at the time like tiny specks of colored light falling from the ceiling in reds, greens, and blues. I used to pretend like they were Mike and Ike's, falling down into my bed, and I'd try to catch them with my mouth, but to no avail. Obviously, nothing would happen. I had no idea what this was. Of course, until I got older and I started experiencing this in many forms, which I'll get into later. One night, I remember this clear as day. I was lying on the top bunk. Everyone else was sleeping. I look over to the railing on the side of my bed and I see a pair of big, giant eyes. They reminded me of, like, Cookie Monster. They were just staring at me. Since by this point, I had seen, like, many things, never knowing if it was my imagination or something else, I just stared at them until I fell asleep, which didn't feel like long at all. I woke up later that same night, looking down at the floor from the same level as my top bunk, where I was just sleeping. However, I was sitting cross-legged, slowly spinning in a circle in mid-air. I remember looking down at the oval blue and white barn rug that my mom had put in our room and thinking, wow, this is amazing. I reached my arm out, trying to touch the railing on my bunk bed with no luck. I just kept slowly rotating, spinning around in the air in wonderment. That morning, I woke up on the floor of my bedroom, on that same rug that I was just hovering over hours before. I told my sisters with excitement, and they said, I just fell off my bunk bed in the middle of the night. Another one added, yeah, I heard a big bump and went back to bed. But I know in my heart what I experienced. I can still feel the weightlessness of my body in the gentle spinning. I hold that memory very, very dear to my heart. With that, I am going to end this episode. It's a very short episode, but I will continue with my spiritual awakening journey on a different episode, probably a few later, to give you guys a little bit of a break. But I so very much appreciate everyone who listens to these podcast episodes. This is something that I've always wanted to do, and I just never thought I would do it because, I never thought that I had something so important to say that people were going to listen, So when you guys are sitting here listening, it's like magic to me. And I can't thank you enough for your support, your love, your listening-ship, just everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, my friends.
Thank you so much, my friends, for sharing your time, space, and attention. If you like what you heard, please feel free to share with your friends, like, subscribe, comment, and leave a review. As always, I offer Akashic readings, tarot readings, energy readings, Reiki sessions, and QHHT sessions. If you're interested in booking a session with me, either online or in person, please feel free to visit my website, lemonsageandlavender.com. The energy exchange of your time and attention mean the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as always, I root myself in wonder. I open myself to bloom. I trust the journey of thought. Now get out there and blossom, my friends.